We're moving now into the narrative part of our celebration tonight, our journey in faith. And so we have actually three dialogues tonight, beginning with St. Mark and our journey from the past, our journey to the present, and our future journey. Our first speaker tonight, I gave some long thought to who I would ask because there's so many people that could speak to the past of St. Mark. And I remember what a magnificent job John Carlson did back in October when he spoke. And so in thinking about tonight, I thought, well, who's been on this train for the last 50 years? And then I remembered that just before the church began, Todd Ellenberger was born. And those of you who know Todd know that Todd has a really unique way of expressing himself. And I thought Todd would be the perfect guy to talk about the train ride since it left the station 50 years ago. Let's give a big warm welcome for Todd Ellenberger.
I was the third choice. The first two said no. Four. And I'm quite relieved that I'm not following a kids act. Pets and kids you never want to follow. And listening to that wonderful Peter Pan song reminded me that I spent most of the day trying to get out of wearing a tie and a suit to this event, but a t-shirt wasn't going to fly at home, so here I am, suit and tie, and hope you bear with me. As most of you know, I'm not real comfortable speaking in front of groups of folks and speaking into microphones. I'm kind of a shy guy, so I'll try to do the best that I can. What? Whatever. Anyway, so the title of my paper is A Lifetime Growing Up at St. Mark Lutheran Church in 7 minutes or less. That was ground rules, 7 minutes or less. Okay, I'll do what I can. So basically, I grew up at St. Mark. My grandparents were charter members, two of the best people I've ever met in my life. Get sentimental in a moment. My aunt and uncle were charter members. My mom and dad and I just missed it, as my dad was stationed in the Marine Corps in Camp Pendleton, but close to being charter members. So basically, my whole life has kind of been centered around this church, watching it grow from one little strip to two little strips to a really big sanctuary and what we have now, which is, I think, a beautiful place. Anyway, so chapter 1 of my paper is the 60s. And I know you're all thinking, what could that strapping young man know about the 60s? Well, I've heard stories, so I'll relay some of them to you. I think the earliest memory I have of St. Mark is my Sunday school teacher, Mrs. Hine, Beatrice Hine, or as I came later to realize, hey, her name is B. Hine. I would have come in so in handy earlier in my life, and by the time I figured it out, I just had too much respect for her to ever say anything. But what a wonderful woman, and her husband, Carl. Miss them every day. Anyway, no applause. I've only got 7 minutes, sorry. She was my Sunday school teacher, and I remember showing up one day and realizing, no, you're in the next year. Your teacher is such and such, and I'm like, my teacher's B. Hine. She's always been my teacher, and I think that was the first meltdown I ever had at St. Mark. Right there in the hallway, next to the kitchen where the coats hang, I think I threw a fit. But I recovered. It took a while, but I recovered. Another thing I remember from the 60s is I was always looking forward to church being over so I could go out and do a fossil hunt in those rocks, the rocks that are around the outer perimeter of the church. They were there then, too. And I'd go out and I'd look for the coolest rock and look for maybe a fossil. And I noticed the other day, man, they're still there. And I wonder if kids do that or if it was just me. But it's one of the memories. I always came home with a rock. Our first pastor was Pastor Benson. And I don't think I really understood that his name was Pastor Benson. I thought he was a Pastor Benson, I guess. And then one day he announced he's leaving, and I thought, can he do that? You know, can he just leave? I guess he can. He's gone, and it was an odd time in my life, thinking, where'd the pastor go? So we had a few good interim pastors, but then finally, one day, I guess it was 69 or 70, I can't remember exactly, this new guy showed up. He had sideburns. I didn't know pastors could have sideburns. And he's pretty young, too. And he came over to our house one night, met with my dad and a bunch of the men from the church, and he had a beer. And I thought, I didn't know pastors could drink beer. This guy'll never last. So anyway, that brings me to chapter 2, the 70s. Probably one of the strongest memories of growing up at St. Mark was the whole softball culture, if you will. We had really good softball teams, and the leagues we were in were just really competitive leagues with guys going at it. Oh, well, I'm sorry I wasn't on the girls' team, but I know that the ladies had really good teams too. But it was fast-pitch softball back then, and man, for a bunch of Lutherans, that was cutthroat softball. You didn't want to be in front of John Carlson when he was sliding into second base, I'll tell you what. Anyway, I met some of my friends that I still have today in those softball nights. My fellow tenors, P. Dennis Carlson and Jerry Casaniga, were the first time I met them were either watching softball games or at the Afterglow, the family gathering. Every week, the families would get together, move from house to house, and host a party, and we'd all go over, the kids, everybody. It was some of the greatest times I can remember as a kid was centered around St. Mark and the softball teams. And then when I turned 15, I realized my dream, I was on the St. Mark softball team. Woo! I still have a picture of me, it's in black and white, batting in the city championship game at Churchill Park under the lights, and we won. That's probably 100 pounds wet, but I still played. I don't know what caused it to happen, but at one point in time in the 70s, we didn't have a sanitary staff at church, so we had this group of guys that would clean the church, and they called themselves the Sanitary Six. And I know most of those guys, but my dad was one of them, and Herm Hainert and some others, Dale Bergstrom, and I think Mal Pankovic, but the rest I can't remember. But that, I just remember watching them clean and scrub and vacuum. I'm like, wow, this is interesting. I think that only lasted a year or two, but I just thought I'd mention it, as an option if you ever need a... Yeah, what was interesting about those softball teams and games is I got to know the kids, of course, of all the guys that were playing, and they became my friends. But as years went on, those guys became my friends. It was like a generation thing, but it was really great. Formed some really good friendships there, and it was sad to see some of them go. Confirmation camp. Pastor beware. Really good memories of confirmation camp. I remember that sideburn guy. Can't remember his name right now. Anyway, he was banging on our door one night, complaining that we were too loud. It's like, it's you that's loud banging on that door. Stop banging. I think it was lucky for us he didn't get through, but by the next morning he seemed to settle down a little. So then the next night we thought we should do him a favor, and we disassembled a double queen bed, snuck it past his window, rode it out to the... this is at Lake Geneva, Camp Augustana. Rode it out to the raft, reassembled it, and 2 people slept the night on the raft. And in the morning, I woke up to the loudest belly laugh I've ever heard in my life. I still remember that. He was crying. He was laughing so hard. So we We redeemed ourselves from 2 nights earlier. Kids. Any kids that are here? Luke and, yep, Zach. Amy Gerke, yes, children. If you're ever playing hide and seek in the church, just a word of advice, do not hide behind the pipe organ pipes. I'm just saying, it's frowned upon. They will never find you. The youth group. Some of the best years of my life at that time were revolved around the St. Mark youth group. As I remember as a freshman, getting chased, caught, and tied to the flagpole at Camp Augustana. And then I realized if I ran to the flagpole and climbed it, they couldn't tie me to it. And then we realized there's more of us than there are of them. Let's just stick together. And they left us alone. But as I went on, I got older, and now I'm an upperclassman. I'm a junior, so I'm doling out. I'm not taking the punishment anymore. I'm doling it out. So at Camp Augustana, again, we're initiating the freshmen, and I think they're putting, shaving cream and Vaseline in their hair, and I don't know, it was horrendous things going on in there, but my job was to throw them into Lake Geneva, and I was pretty good at it. They'd come down one by one, walk to the end, in they go. Next one, in they go. Well, I threw this one in, skinny, fuzzy-headed blonde, I think, and she gets out. No, it wasn't you, Gerke, and she shakes her hair all over and sprays me, an upperclassman, with Vaseline and sand. It's like, poof, you're back in the lake. It's like, you can't disrespect an upperclassman here. She did not shake her head the next time she came out, I'll tell you what. I can't remember her name. I don't know. It might come back later. I don't know. Oh, yeah. So I got this shirt from someone, and it was from a vacation, and it was like, I guess it was supposed to be a special shirt, but we're playing football. And I got tackled and tore it. And that was not a good thing, let me tell you what. Never play football in this shirt you've just been given as a gift. Oh, and the bus. The church had a bus, and we traveled everywhere in that bus. And the two things I remember about it is loading it with stuff and watching it as it broke down. And I think it spent more time stopped than rolling, but it was really a lot of fun going to our events in that bus. We painted it. Oh, I didn't paint it, but it was painted all sorts of cool 70s colors. It was good. Partridge Family-like, sort of.